Hey, it's Sri here, and in today's video I'm going to talk you through a little bit more about what your husband means when he says, "I'm not in love with you anymore." Now, before we dive in, I know that going through a situation where your husband says something like, "I'm not in love with you anymore," is extremely painful for you, and if you are going through that, my heart breaks for you. And so, I really want to make sure that you go through and watch this entire video so you can learn a little bit more about the reasons why he's actually saying what he's saying and what it means in terms of the overall context of your marriage as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below and click on that bell notification as well, so every week you get access to my latest videos where you can learn a little bit more about how to awaken your goddess within, how to really recover from infidelity, and do your very best as well to maximize your chances of saving your marriage. Now, when you hear those words, "Honey, I'm not in love with you anymore," I know it can, not only is it painful, but it's probably very confusing as well. It probably felt like a week ago he was, being really kind to you, and maybe you were still being intimate or just having some lovely times together, and then suddenly he throws this bombshell on you, and you're sitting there just going, how did it get to this point? Like, what the hell does this mean? Does it mean that we're finished? Does it mean that we can maybe get that love back? What does it mean? How do I move forward from all of this? And one of the reasons why I wanted to shoot this video is that a lot of people are often struggling to understand a man's mind in those circumstances. And it's not even around when he says, "I don't love you anymore." It could be around a number of other situations that lead him to making comments about, "Look, I don't know if this is right for me anymore," and so on. So I wanted to shed some light on this and really give you some clarity. And I'm going to do that by sharing a few little scenarios that I've heard from actual clients and explain to you the reasoning and the perspective around why it is that they're saying the things that they're saying. Because once you actually understand that perspective, it's going to give you greater insight. And then with that insight, you can then use that knowledge, convert it into wisdom, and then use that wisdom to make the best decisions for your future. Now, firstly, I had a client of mine that I was speaking to the other day, and she was explaining to me about how her and her husband are, not connecting much at all at the moment. But one of the things that she sort of struggles with is the fact that whenever he goes out, he always goes and buys candy for his kids. And she just doesn't quite understand, not just only from a health perspective, but also from a financial perspective. Why would you keep just throwing lots of money at candy for kids? What's the reason? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, we can sit here and look at this and think, well, yeah, it actually makes no sense. Why would he go off and just buy treats for them all the time? And why would he do that? It's not healthy for them. It doesn't make sense on lots of levels. So why on earth would he do that? And then from there, that then leads to conversations that are generally made in a heightened way, as far as, you're getting angry at that person and so on. And then what happens is that then leads to arguments between the two of them, which then escalates and then forces them to just be quiet and, not communicate for days and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to understand exactly why it is that he would do those things. Now, what actually happens here is you've got to look at this from a deeper behavioral perspective. What that means is whenever we do anything, whenever we engage in certain behaviors, we have to assume that there is a positive benefit behind that. What is the positive benefit? That's what we always have to look at. And I don't care if it's cheating, I don't care if it's just buying candy or spending money on something stupid. We have to look at the positive benefit. So what we need to do is step into that person's shoes and get clear on what exactly are they trying to do. Now, in this situation, from my perspective, it all came down to what needs did it meet for him when he would do those things. Now, he's someone that is probably going through a lot himself, because separations, even though one person may initiate it, that doesn't mean that that person is just happy and living a wonderful life while the other person is, miserable. Both people are actually going through a lot in those times, and we have to acknowledge that. That doesn't mean that we have to agree with behaviors, but we have to acknowledge that both people are often going through a little bit of pain. Not every time, but in a lot of occasions that I see, both individuals are absolutely going through a lot of challenges themselves. Now, if he's going through some challenges and he's not spending much time in the family house and he's going off and doing other things and he's under pressure at work and he's feeling insignificant on so many levels, then what he wants to do is whenever there are those moments when he is spending time with the kids, he wants to make sure that they're happy. How does he do that? Go and buy some candy, or go and get a couple of treats or whatever it may be. Because in those moments the kids are excited, the kids are happy, and so on. So whilst the behavior and the actions are not necessarily the best thing to do, it's not the best vehicle to ensure that your kids are happy. As human beings, we all know that we make mistakes, we do things that aren't necessarily rational a lot of the time. And I think once we understand that that's the reason why, then what can happen is we then have empathy for where that person is at, and then it allows us to communicate with them in a much better way and not get so flustered and so angry and frustrated and hurt towards them for those behaviors. So it's all about stepping into that person's shoes and understand what is the deeper need that is being met there. What are they actually trying to gain by doing some of these things? And I'm sure you'll have your own examples of things that your husband or partner may have done, and you're sitting there going, what this doesn't make any sense. But we've got to look at it from a deeper behavioral perspective and a deeper emotional perspective, because once you understand that, it gives you insight, and that allows you to react in a much better way. Now, another scenario here is around money. So I had another client who explained to me about how, money was this real source of tension between the two of them. And what was happening was she basically was explaining that her husband was getting really frustrated that she wasn't bringing enough money in. And because of that, it would lead them to have frustrations at home, because she wanted to find the balance in her life and spend time with the kids and so on, which she's absolutely entitled to. And then he would get frustrated because she wasn't bringing enough money in, and then that would mean that they weren't able to maybe get ahead or experience some of the things that he wanted to experience, or have that level of abundance that he actually wanted. Now, once again, we can look at this and say, well, her intent is beautiful. She wants to spend time with family, and that's a lovely thing. And we can easily look at the husband and think, who cares? It's money. I mean, we don't take it to the grave, so let's just find more joy and more happiness with, the important things in life, and the money stuff we can sort out later. But in all the years that I've been doing this work, and even for my own self as well, I know that sometimes we can intellectually understand things, but emotionally it's a different story. It can take us over. And I know in my own life, in the past especially, there have been areas of my life where I've been so consumed by it, whether it be, attachments to, sporting results, in terms of, sports that I was playing in and the results that I would get, or, if it was around money and so on. And I knew that it was wrong. I knew it wasn't the right thing to be focusing on. But emotionally, I found it really hard to just let go of that. And that's because the way I had wired myself at that moment in time was that I needed to make sure that I had a certain amount of, things in my life, or achieved a certain amount of success, in order for me to then focus on the things that were most important. So in other words, I had to get all of this stuff first before I could actually experience the happiness. When the truth is that that's not what actually allows us to be happy. What allows us to be happy is to enjoy the moment, to be here present, and then those things tend to flow from there. But most individuals focus on getting, and then once they get those things, then they'll be happy. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that having a desire or wanting to make a lot of money or whatever it may be is a bad thing. Because some people may disagree with me and think, well, no, you've got to make a lot of money, because money allows you to find the freedom and the flexibility in life and all of that stuff. And if that's the way that, that guy is wired, then that becomes his truth. That's what's important for him. And in those situations, it's very difficult to then say to someone, well, listen, you're actually going about life the wrong way. What you really need to be focusing on is spending more quality time with your family and stuff, because he'll probably challenge you and say, well, look, this is my way to ensure that we do spend quality time. If I can get all of that stuff going, I can make all the money, then I can give you all of these years, soon enough, where we actually spend quality time. But part of that is I need you to help me out with this as well. And this is often one of the big stresses that I see in marriages. You know, a lot of people have a lot of fear around money. And because you're together and you have this partnership, and one person might be driven massively by money and another person might not, and the person who's actually driven by money is like, look, I need you to help me out, the other person is not, or maybe contributing at the level that they want them to, it can then go against what is important for them in their life. And if that compounds enough over time, then what happens is that person can get to a place where they say, you know what, this just isn't working for me anymore. I feel like we're on completely different wavelengths. I don't know if I'm, wanting to be in this marriage anymore. Which then kind of naturally leads to the third scenario, which is, I'm just not in love with you anymore. Now, when someone says, I'm not in love with you anymore, it's not so much that they're not in love with you, it's that the behaviors and all of the things that have been unfolding over the years go against what's important to that person. And because they're coming from a different mindset, they've got a different viewpoint on all of this, they're looking at the other person and thinking, I just don't know if we're compatible anymore. I don't know if this is something that I want to be a part of. It's not necessarily that they don't care about you or wouldn't do things for you or just don't have some sort of empathy for you anymore. It's more of a case of that the values and what's most important to them doesn't line up or match up with the behaviors that they are on the receiving end of. In other words, for them it might be that they really want to make a lot of money. For you, it's that's not that important and you don't want to really contribute because they're so rigid and fixed in their mindset about what they want, and they keep looking at those little things that keep stacking up over time, and before you know it, it's, honey, I just don't know if I'm in love with you anymore. And I think we often get caught up in that person actually is looking at us as an individual, thinking we don't actually love that person, when in actual fact it's lots of these different behaviors that have compounded in their perception of you in the marriage. And that's what we have to really understand. Now, some of you might be watching this and thinking, look, I'm going into bat for some of these guys and so on. And it's not about that at all. What it is I want to free you from your pain. I want to help you to ensure that you're in the best place mentally and emotionally, and that you're making the best decisions for your marriage, whether that's deciding to stay, deciding to leave. You may decide that your values are completely misaligned, and if your values are misaligned and you don't feel like you've got that connection, that's okay. We don't have to just force marriages to work because we're married. I really believe that. I'd rather two people be separated and be happy than together and being miserable. I will always say that. And it's not fair on anyone. So you really want to make sure that you're making the best decisions for you. But I think to make the best decisions, we have to step into the other person's shoes as well and really understand their world. And if I was speaking to a man, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. Understand what's most important. And the example of, the financial piece, if he could step into her shoes and really understand at a deeper level the importance of spending quality time, of, spending these valuable times which you'll never get back, in terms of with your kids and so on, maybe that can help that person go, you know what, the money side of things isn't actually that important, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but at least I spent that quality time with my kids, which I will never ever regret. So it's so important to understand each other's perspectives, and once you do that, it can just give you a little bit of that light bulb moment in your own mind, being like, wow, okay, I get it. Is that just going to take away the pain of some of the things he said? No. But what you can do is gain the knowledge of what's going on and then convert that into wisdom. And once you convert that into wisdom, then you can start making the best decisions that you possibly can on this journey of yours. So I hope that makes sense. A lot of my clients have been talking about, why is it that he's saying these things? Why is it that he's acting the way he is? What does it mean when he says this? And so I wanted to shoot this video just to provide a little bit of clarity and hopefully just explain a little bit about the male mind in some of these situations as well. And to be perfectly honest, this is really a human being thing as opposed to just a male thing. Now, we all know that, understanding these things is one thing, but being able to create the actual shifts that we want is another thing altogether. And if you are feeling a little bit lost and a little bit stuck in your journey and getting quite emotional and it's all getting a little bit too much, then, I'd love to be of service to you through my program, the Authentic Relationship System, which is an amazing program geared for women to help them to heal from within, to be able to maximize their chances of saving their marriage and really recover from all things such as infidelity, separation, or going through a divorce as well. So I am here to support you every step of the way, and not only me, but there's a beautiful community of women out there in my program who are there to support you and be your biggest cheerleader as well. So I can't wait to be of service to you. All you need to do is in the description section below, just click on that link which says book a call with me. Just click on that link, choose a time that works for you, and then I'll contact you at that scheduled time, just so I can learn a little bit more about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time. I can't wait to speak to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit that like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And do let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this video as well. I always love hearing your comments and questions, so make sure you write them below, and I'll respond to every single one of them. And if you want to learn whether men regret losing a good woman, click this video above. And if you want to learn why men always come back after a separation, click this video above. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.